Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are on planet Earth today. I'm Bill Murray from 12 Ronnies. This is our Wednesday get together where we talk about entrepreneurship, answer questions from whoever has questions, and today we've got a special guest. We got Julie Shively, and she's brought some questions with her today from some very special people that she works with. Julie, what you want to tell us a little bit about yourself, your work, and the
Yep.
people that we're going to
Yep.
be answering questions from today?
As Bill mentioned, my name is Julie Shively, and I'm the founder of Innovation World, which is an online resource for innovators, inventors, and educators that support both of those groups. Also, the co-founder of the Global Innovation Field Trip, which is an online 24-hour multi-country celebration of youth innovation. Next event comes up the 12th and 13th of October, so look up globalinnovationfieldtrip.org if you'd like to present your innovation story, or watch us on YouTube if you'd like to watch the whole event or whatever part you can catch. So these students that have supplied questions today really are from our network from the Global Innovation Field Trip. They're students we met over time that have come back and presented multiple times. And they were so excited when I sent them the question of, or ask an entrepreneur questions, I guess. And I'm excited to get your feedback on some of these too. These kids are pretty amazing. Most of them are pretty young. I think we have one, I don't even know if we'll get to her question today in 11th grade, but the first two or three are all, 5th and 6th graders. And so it's amazing what they think about already at this age.
That's fantastic. Well, let's jump into it. As I found before, we can spend a lot of time on some of these questions. We probably won't get through much today, but we promise we'll come back and we'll get through all of them at some point.
All right. Well, first leading is Tai Win, and he's grade 5 from the Philippines, and he's got actually 4 questions. So we'll try to get through those quickly. First, what is your advice for young entrepreneurs that are starting their businesses? Big question.
Yeah. So for an entrepreneur, the most important thing is to be curious and to not fall in love with your solution, but fall in love with the problem that you're trying to solve. And this just isn't just a problem for young entrepreneurs. It's a problem for everyone. In fact, I'm working with people right now that came to me saying, "Hey, we need to build a chatbot," and said, "Hey, that's great. Chatbots are really cool. What problem are you solving?" And they kind of thought for a minute. They said, "Well, we need to build a chatbot." And so sometimes as an entrepreneur, you have to not fall in love with your solution, fall in love with the problem, and then get that help. Get a mentor from the outside that'll ask you these questions so that you don't go down the wrong path for too long.
That's good. Good answer. How hard is it to be an entrepreneur?
Well, it depends on your mindset. If you have a mindset of, this kind of follows the last one. If you have a build mindset, it's going to be hard being an entrepreneur because you're going to spend a lot of time building and be frustrated when customers don't get excited about what you built because you built it for yourself or you built it based on assumptions that weren't validated. So once you start asking questions and you fall in love with problems and understand the people and the context behind those problems, then becoming an entrepreneur gets really easy because you're constantly moving, because you're constantly learning. So I guess maybe the sure answer to that, it's hard when you're not learning. It's easy when you are.
That's great. And some of these I can relate so much in what I've been doing for the last 4 years. And taking on a mentor is absolutely one of the ways to help sort through some of that stuff. I can attest to that, Bill. All right, here's one more on a more personal level. When you were young, Bill, did you dream of becoming an entrepreneur?
Yeah, I think all kids, at some point have, they want to, they love inventing. Any child that's ever picked up Legos and built something, gets the bug. Hey, I want to build something. I want to make something that people love. I want to do what I want to do. I want to follow my passion. So absolutely. The thing that prevented me from becoming a successful entrepreneur for decades was being stuck stuck in that build mold. I guess we keep coming around to the same thing, but it's it's really the most important thing. Is once I stopped building and started asking questions, being an entrepreneur got really fun because I started learning these amazing things from people. And I really started to care about what people were thinking and why they were thinking it. And I just wanted more. I wanted to talk to more people and more people. And I didn't want to build anything until I had a really good idea of who these people were, what their problem was, and why it was so important to them.
Excellent. I can say I did not want to be an entrepreneur at a young age. I favored myself as being the first female president. And I am sorry to say that I might lose that opportunity here in November. Somebody might beat me. I don't know. All right. Do you think kids should be entrepreneurs at any age? At a young age, I'm sorry. Do you think kids should be entrepreneurs at a young age?
Yeah, I think it's all about taking on what's appropriate for your age and for your skills. So, for the youngest kids, you'll see kids in the neighborhood that have a lemonade stand, and that might be the right sort of fidelity, the right level of complexity for that young person. But the nice thing is even with a lemonade stand, you can get very sophisticated. You can turn it into a business. But at some point, as a young person, there are permits and things like that. You have to be 18 or 21 years old, depending on where you are to get. And so it starts to fall out of your hands. So be an entrepreneur, pick things that you can do really great at, and that you can get resources to support you, parents, teachers, other people, so that you're not artificially stopped. Because that's the disappointing part, is you hit this point, oh shoot, I'm not 18, so I can't do that. I'm not 21 years old, so I can't do that. You don't want to have to be in that position. So as you look into the world for problems that you can solve, look for ones that someone of your age can solve legally, and with the knowledge that you have or knowledge that you can get. And you'd be surprised, it's probably a lot of problems that fit that.
Yeah, and I do also want to mention a student who becomes an entrepreneur is no less an entrepreneur because they're asking for this help. In fact, collaborating with other people is really one of the best ways to make things move more smoothly, maybe even a little quicker because you have more resources and more help. But if there are things that your parents can help you do, if there are things that mentors can help you do, or other organizations or programs or people who just are interested in what you're doing, then invite them in to help, because you're no less the entrepreneur for doing so. You're actually, I believe, a better entrepreneur for doing so.
I couldn't agree more. Some of the most rewarding times that I've had as an entrepreneur have been when I'm working with other people who have talents that I don't have, or that share talents that I have, and then we learn from each other, and that when two people are working something, it's not 2x, it's x squared. And I think realizing that early is great for young people, and it's something that will help you as an adult as well.
Yep, I agree. So thank you, Tywin, for those questions. Appreciate it. Our next line of questions comes from Siddharth. He goes by Sid. He lives in Massachusetts in the USA, and he's in 6th grade. And he starts with, hold on just a second. Who should entrepreneurs go to as a mentor before starting a business?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's one of those questions where when I hear it from somebody, it's a great sign that they're thinking the right way. Instead of just, putting your head down and running into building something or running into something that you might not understand. Who is that mentor? Who's that person that could help me answer important questions first, so that I don't accidentally make avoidable mistakes? I mean, there's two kinds of mistakes. One is good and one isn't good. The avoidable mistake, making mistakes that other people have made that you could have learned about, that's not a good type of mistake. Making mistakes like, maybe not having all the features your customer wants on your first prototype, that's a good type of mistake, because it's something that you can learn from and iterate on. So the kind of people that make good mentors are people that are already entrepreneurs themselves. They could be people that are stakeholders in the problem you're trying to solve. So let's say you're trying to solve the problem of someone maybe people in your community are having a hard time with transportation, getting to and from the place they need to get. Obviously you could talk to customers, but they might not be able to help you in the way a mentor can. So a mentor might be somebody in city government, or someone that owns a transportation company that could help you understand how people get around, what local strategies are regarding transportation, and so on, so that you could get a really great base to understand, okay, this is where we start. The space to innovate is in here somewhere. So the mentor probably gets you up to that spot where you can have a much better place to start. Instead of starting with nothing, they start you with something.
I think it's a really good point in Sid's question about mentors before starting, and I loved your response on it. I think we tend to see students partway through their process and then recommend a mentor, but I don't know why we're not starting with the mentor to begin with. That makes absolute sense. So yeah. I'm going to think about that a little more and figure out how I can push that through the programming that we do. Why make some of those initial mistakes if you don't have to, and you can move on to doing more productive things?
Yeah, I've been involved in a few accelerators or incubators. These are places where entrepreneurs can come together with coaches and resources and that sort of thing. And 99% of the time, by the time I'm brought in, they've already made a lot of poor mistakes. They've already done stuff that I could have told them, hey, let me tell you about somebody else that's already done this. So you don't have to do it and make the same mistake, lose the time, lose the money, lose the energy that they have. So a lot of times when I get them too late, they're already in so deep that they have a hard time stopping and stepping back, and they end up throwing good money after bad. So I think you're right, Julie. If there was a program where you came in just with an idea, you haven't done anything yet, you come in with an idea, you're assigned a mentor based on the scope of that idea, and then you move forward there. That would be a really interesting format to see, how quickly people could stop doing something, which is really important as an entrepreneur, stopping, and also how far they could get on the same amount of resources, time, money, and energy, as opposed to when they kind of were winging it for months or even years, and then they finally talked to somebody, and they'd already dug a hole for themselves.
I can relate. Although it's never too late to talk to somebody, though.
Absolutely not. Yes, but I can certainly relate. I've gone down the road way too far and made those mistakes myself. I lost a mortgage payment once doing the wrong thing. So.
All right. So Siddharth's next question is, what kind of companies do entrepreneurs start?
So that's an interesting question. I think the short answer is that there's no limit to the type of company that you can start. Keep in mind that there's two stages in entrepreneurialism, and Steve Blank, he's a professor, retired professor now at the University of California, had really two definitions. There's a definition of a startup and a definition of a company. And the definition of a startup is an organization, it's a learning organization that's job is to discover a repeatable, profitable, repeatable business model. And then a company is an organization that's job is to execute on that business model. So when we think about what do we start as an entrepreneur, we can start anywhere. We start with a problem, and that could be anything. It could be something that's happening where you live, could be something that's happening around the world, something with a very specific person at a very specific time. The only limits are your ability to understand that problem and then create value. Because in that first step, you are truly a startup. You are looking for a repeatable, profitable business model in solving whatever this problem is, and you're not a company until you do that.
Okay. Sid goes on to ask, why should one be an entrepreneur?
Well, it's not for everybody. I think some people are comfortable with the the uncertainty, the ambiguity of being an entrepreneur, of always be, trying, of having to learn, of all, sometimes feeling like you're kind of always one step behind. But for a lot of people, that's very exciting. For other people, that's not as much for them. They might not be as comfortable as the entrepreneur. But the cool thing is when you do, going back to one of the prior questions, when you do partner with people, there are a number of sort of formulas for what a great kind of team is for a startup. But one of them is the visionary, the hacker, the hustler, and the designer. The visionary is definitely that entrepreneurial person who is always looking over the horizon, always trying to learn that next thing. But with designer, hacker, and hustler, people who might not be as comfortable in that space of ambiguity might be comfortable in those roles. The hacker, that's the person who can build stuff quickly. They can spin up a web page in 15 minutes with a button that tells us whether or not people are actually interested in our product. The hustler, is just the salesperson. They're the person that goes out, finds the customer, and says, "Hey, look what we built for you," and they see what happens. And again, that person may not be super entrepreneurially minded or may not be comfortable in that space, but they might be super comfortable going out and talking to people and evangelizing a new product. And then the designer, sometimes that's the kind of the quiet introvert on the team. They like kind of building things quietly and doing writing ad copy and that sort of stuff. And they may be a little shy, and maybe they don't like talking to people directly, but they love designing things. They love writing copy and designing advertisements. And the nice thing is all four people are necessary for the startup to be successful. They all work together and bring specific talents in there. So even if you may feel like, I'm not sure I'm entrepreneurial material, you may find other people who are, and you can be a part of that team and still experience the excitement of building something without the stress of having to be that visionary.
That's a really great point. And I think that a lot of students think of an entrepreneur as a single individual. And while they are their own individual, you can be an entrepreneurship team and be very successful that way.
Sometimes the greatest moments in history is when one founder meets another founder. Imagine Steve Jobs meets Steve Wozniak. What would history be if those two never met? It'd be a very different world.
Yeah.
Bell and Watson. What would the world be without them? So, yeah, absolutely.
All right. Next question. What are the steps to make yourself a successful entrepreneur?
The journey is probably different for just about everybody, but the initial steps to put yourself in a good position are to be curious. Get comfortable asking questions. Get comfortable asking questions of strangers, people that you don't know. The fun thing is I've seen this. I used to do a 3-day boot camp at a company I used to work with, and people throughout the company of all walks of life, people that had no intention of ever becoming an entrepreneur, would walk in that room on Tuesday. And at the end of the day on Thursday, they would walk out with these amazing entrepreneurial attitudes and skills. So what we would see, what I observed the steps was, first just getting comfortable asking questions and talking to strangers, because they would walk out the door when I sent them out the door to go talk to people. And they say, well, I don't think anybody's going to talk to us about this. They would come back later on that day, say, I can't believe the people that talked to us and what they said. So it's getting over your own potential fears, uncertainties, and doubts, going out and talking to people, and then getting that excitement. So you going out and working in this way makes you better at working in this way. So going out and practicing, just talk to people about the problems they have every day. You may not even see one, but just say, hey, what's the biggest problem you face in the morning? And they may start talking about traffic, or they may talk about getting their child to school, or getting a healthy breakfast, or and all of a sudden these things that alone maybe didn't interest you now become interesting because they're someone's problem, and there's this emotional attachment. And as human beings, we always want to solve problems for each other. And you start thinking, oh gosh, I think I can help that guy get a good breakfast in the morning. And you would never have thought you'd be saying that to yourself. So those are the initial steps: is becoming curious, learning to ask questions, and then being able to put all that information that you gather together into something called an insight. People use the word insight a lot. Julie, you know, I get on my soapbox on the word insight, but I'll do it here again. But it's insights are not data. Insights are the why of all the what. The data is the what, the insights are the why. And if you can be one of those people that can take all that what and come up with a why that is that's transformational, then you can be a really great entrepreneur. When you can identify those whys, because your customer may not even be able to identify them. So, you know, this guy can't get a good breakfast in the morning because he doesn't have a good program at night to get to bed at a reasonable hour. And so he wakes up tired, you know, too tired to have the energy to make breakfast. So now all of a sudden you've got this really great insight. Hey, the problem with breakfast doesn't start in the morning. It starts the day before. And then and your customer would never have told you that. They wouldn't have realized it. They wouldn't have blamed, you know, their habits the day before on their inability to get breakfast in the morning. So those are those initial steps, and then the other steps are really just making sure you have you get the resources, the abilities, the talents, the skills that you need along the way, and that involves getting a mentor, getting co-founders, people to help you out, and also learning and getting, you know, going online. You can get anything on YouTube nowadays. If you need to learn something, go there, learn, and then go out and practice it. Sorry, that was really
that was wonderful. I'm going to ask this question, but then I'm going to try to answer it for you first to see how well my mentor has been helping me.
Please do.
Okay. If you're an entrepreneur and your product has failed, what do you do? My two answers would be, it shouldn't be a huge surprise to you if you've been talking to your customer and asking questions. And two, again, don't be in love with your product. You need to work on solving the problem. And if you've got fixed in your head that that's the only thing that's going to solve it, you're not listening to your customers necessarily. So there you go. Now build on that.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's exactly right. You know, when a prototype of a product fails, you know, I tell the teams I work with, when you go out and show people this thing that you think is going to be valuable to them, be excited when they love it and be excited when they hate it, because those two emotions you can work with. If they look at it and they're like, yeah, it's okay. I mean, it's, you know, it's somewhere in between isn't going to help you. So build products that people are either going to love or hate. You know, be bold. And if they hate it, great. Unpack that moment. Tell me what you thought when you first saw it. Tell me what happened when you tried to use it. Why did you hate it so much? What other products have you used in the past that you like better? And then if they love it, why did they love it? Why did they pick it up? You know, what was their favorite part about it? What was their least favorite part about it? Because either way, you've won. If the customer loves it or hates it, you have won. And so now you just take the next step based on what you learned. They told you something. You build a new insight. All right, I think they hated it because, you know, they told me all this stuff, but this is the real reason, because it didn't solve their problem in the way that it needed to be solved. So now we go back and we make a little bit of change and we go back to that customer, and that's fun.
All right. Let me add to that question.
Please.
What if you built a product a long time ago and you didn't test it? What would you suggest? That, I guess that's a silly question. You would suggest going out and now showing it to some of your customers, or who you think your customers will be, and get their feedback.
Yeah, I don't care how old your product is. It's always a good time to show it to a customer and get some feedback. And you may have built it 20 years ago and then you never did anything with it, or it failed then and maybe you gave up on it. Well, great. You know, does the problem still exist that you're trying to solve? And if it did, you know, let's try it again. Let's get the feedback that we need to get, and then we'll take a big step forward after that.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Siddharth, for your questions. And we're moving on to Max. Max is from Ohio, USA. And his question is, how would you recommend I take up starting my hot chocolate food truck And how much of a markup should I price the products at? And how would I ask companies to let me come to their events?
Well, it's certainly that it's a great idea here. You've got a kind of a vision of where you want to be. Now I'm going to treat this like someone came to me and they hadn't really started much of this yet. So if someone says, I want to, how do I start my food truck? Well, I would say you start your food truck by having a food stand or a hot chocolate stand, because a truck's very expensive. There's a lot of legal issues and costs and insurance and things you have to buy to have one. But if you just started a hot chocolate stand in the place that you were going to park the hot chocolate truck, you can test the same assumptions, the same risks that you can with a truck, and yet do it for next to nothing. Somebody can drive you there, drop you off with all your supplies. You can do your thing, and you can learn. Hey, because the riskiest assumption is people will buy my hot chocolate. Not can I get a food truck or can I get a hot chocolate truck? So my advice would be to really test the lowest fidelity version of this that will test your risky assumptions first. And then if there is an incredible value there, then evaluate whether or not a truck is the right answer for it, or is a modified higher fidelity sort of stand of some kind a better value for me, because it would cost less, require fewer constraints like insurance policies and legal issues and permits and that kind of thing. As far as asking companies to let you be at their events, that comes down to marketing. That's what is your message? Hey, I sell hot chocolate. People like my hot chocolate because here's what my company is about. Profits from my company help to, I'm working my way, trying to save money to go to college, or 10% of my profits go to this charity, that kind of thing. You want to craft what it is your value proposition is now to that company, why they should want you there, and that's going to be up to you and what your values are, and what their needs are as a company. Hey, you've got people at this event. They don't have access to nice beverages. It's a cold day. I can bring hot chocolate there, and people are going to love it. So I think that's kind of the short answer.
Excellent. I'm looking at the next question is a really big one. So I'm thinking maybe I'll skip that one and we'll do that one in the next session and give you one that might be easy to answer in 2 minutes, maybe. It is from Alex in Saudi Arabia, who's in grade 7 right now. What are some digital business ideas for teenagers?
Yeah, I think we'll probably wrap up with this one. I didn't realize we're already 28 minutes past the hour. So great question. And that dovetails a little bit with one of the earlier questions about, what kind of businesses should young people get involved in? So this is narrowing that a bit to digital business ideas. So, in the digital space, really the sky's the limit nowadays, because, a lot of products have a digital aspect to them. An interesting digital business idea to get started in is just to simply help other people out that are trying to start businesses. Can you provide the digital side of it? Because that's something a lot of young people don't have. They don't know how to start a web page, or how to run a database, or how to have a website, that sort of thing. You could start there and learn about how they're starting their businesses, be able to make a little money on the side, providing these digital services to them. And maybe as you're doing this, run into some problems yourself where you say, hey, I want to start a very specific business in the digital space, not just provide services. So there are probably lots of opportunities there, from app development to web pages to a page where maybe someone's got a dog walking business and they need a web page for people to schedule times and pay. So these are great things that you can do, but start simply. Just start something and show that, hey, I can create something here that people want and they're willing to pay for, and then just work your way up, add additional things. Don't try to do too much at once. Do one thing really, really well, and then expand.
Very good. I want to thank Tywin from the Philippines, Siddharth from Massachusetts in the United States, Maxwell from Ohio in the United States, and Alex from Saudi Arabia for your questions. And the rest we will have to catch on the next segment that we do, Bill. This has been really great, though, and I really appreciate you inviting my students in. They would be here in person if they weren't all in school right now.
Yeah, I couldn't be more impressed with these questions. Obviously, you've got some great students out there with some great ideas and some great potential, and it'll be exciting to see what they do with this. So thank you, Julie, for joining us today, and rest of you, we'll see you next week.
You're welcome. Have a good week.